Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto: we take care of our own, as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 171 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we work our way back to the Central Division and highlight the Hockey Club of Rhode Island. Jake Basile chats with James Mello as HCRI turns the page towards their second season in the EHL. The inaugural campaign for the league's first ever franchise in Rhode Island went as well as they could have hoped for, as the team finished in second place in their division. Now, as the program looks ahead towards this upcoming season, Mello is proud to have the foundation established for their new franchise. The challenge coming up, however, will be to take another step forward this upcoming year, as they hit the recruiting roads harder than ever this offseason.
Hello, E-Show, and welcome to another installment of our Coach's Corner chat. Today we are joined by James Mello, head coach of one of last season's expansion teams, Hockey Club Rhode Island. Mello led the new organization to a second-place finish in the Central Division and a 3-game first-round series against the Chiefs. Mello previously coached in the EHL with the Railers during their inaugural season, and prior to that, he coached at the high school and college level after a great career attending the net for Dartmouth College. So, Coach, thanks for taking the time with us today.
Yeah, Jake, I appreciate you having me on. It's good to be back on the E-Show.
Yeah, for sure. So not your first time leading a new organization this past year. You did it with the Railers in 1920. So were you a little bit more used to the ups and downs of an expansion season this year?
Yeah, I mean, every new thing comes with its challenges, right? Because you learn so much through the process. And, I learned some new things here going through the process with HCRI that, I didn't have the opportunity to go through up in Worcester. Up in Worcester, I was working with the infamous Mike Odessa, who, I learned a tremendous amount from and really appreciated the time that I got to spend with him up there. But he had a lot of hands-on with the team that he did when I came into it that summer to come in as head coach. So, being at HC Rhode Island, I was a little bit more involved in a lot of little things that we've got, going on to be able to make it our own here. But like with anything, I think going through it once with Worcester, you get back to realize how long of a season the junior season really is. It's a lot of games. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of time in and out of the rink working on hockey stuff. So, I think one of the coaches in our league, Coach Hooley, early on in the season, I think in Worcester, he was thinking back to a previous season where they had, they lost 10 straight games in the heart of the season. And they went on to win the championship at the end. So, the ups and downs, I think, happen with every team. And that's part of what makes this league pretty good is, anybody can beat anybody on a given night. So it definitely was a good learning experience in this first year down in Rhode Island.
So back when you were with the Railers, you had said on this podcast that the first group of players in an organization, it's their job to pave the road for the guys to come. So how do you think your HCRI guys this year did that?
So we did it a particular way. We carried a low number of kids. We were looking for specific character qualities in a first year program because, anybody coming into a first year program, you kind of have to establish culture. You got to establish, how things are done on a day-to-day basis, mindset, the mentality. So we had a pretty young group this year. And we had real strong leadership, and I felt like the kids did, an exceptional job of first-year program to set a foundation for what we now, get to build off of in years 2 and future.
You mentioned the whole big part of your team was keeping it small and not bringing in too many guys in or out throughout the year. So why was that a key part of Rhode Island's philosophy?
So my general manager, Toby O'Brien, back I think in the 90s, they originally started junior hockey by starting the Eastern Junior League. He had a team called the Granite State Stars, and their philosophy early on was, if you're going to commit to these kids, you're going to own them for the year, and you really got to do your job in terms of recruiting to make sure you get the right fit and the right kid for the situation. And, we're fortunate here that this is a piece of what we do down here in Rhode Island as the junior team. So we wanted to do it a specific way, committing to the small number of kids, the 25 kids that we're going to bring in every year, and really just keep them for 9 months to work on develop and try to get them where they're going. We're sitting with families and talking to parents and everything like that. So I think there's a lot of investment on our part in the kids, and therefore we're expecting the same from them in return. So it creates a little bit of that family environment where you get to be with the same kids all season long, and the guys that are in the apartments live together all season, and kids had billets and players that lived with them that were local. So I think overall it just was something that we determined that's how we wanted to do it, and we kind of stuck to our guns with it here in the first year.
And I think where that really paid off in part was that tightness of the group. Goaltender David Myers told me at the Worcester Showcase just how shocked he was at how close the group became so quickly. Josh Hogue and Will O'Brien all told me the same things as the season went on. So from a coach's perspective, what did you see from that closeness and that bond?
It's fun. It's fun to put the team together with all the different personality types, and certain kids have certain things to work on. Obviously, as the season goes on, where areas that they got to mature and grow and develop. So the fact that the team gets the opportunity to kind of invest in each other, I feel like that's the experience that a lot of them had coming through high school, prep school, right, where you get the same group of kids all season long, and it's the time in the locker room and even travel to and from games on the buses where you build some strong relationships. I played junior hockey with a few kids for a year, and I went to a couple of weddings out of that. So you build some close ties and make some close friends that you carry on. But overall, obviously it's a selfless game. You've got to really play for the guys around you in this sport, and when you can harness that a little bit more by really having the kids care about each other and enjoy being around each other. I think that was probably the coolest thing was, every guy had kind of the same thought at the end of the season, was they liked the fact that they got to spend the year with each other.
And getting into this group of guys themselves in specific, this is one of the youngest teams, if not the youngest in the EHL this season. 14 players without any prior junior experience, including 5 of your 6 regular D. So what do you think were some of the big learning curves for a lot of these guys jumping into their first year of junior hockey?
We were definitely young. We had a lot of 2004 birth years in the lineup. We had an 05 that played, regularly in near Sigalov. And, I think it's a pretty steep learning curve when you're a younger guy, even coming out of prep where there's younger players, even when you're a senior, there's freshmen and everything involved. I think the adjustment that needed to be made was just the intensity and the level of, compete that's needed on a night to night basis, even being, younger, maybe a little bit less physically mature, just going out and knowing that it's not going to be easy to win games. In our league where I think the 19th place team beat the first place team twice during the course of the season. Some of them came from leagues and places where they would go out and know that, beforehand what to expect from the opponent. Some schools never lose to another school over the course of the history of their program. And I think that, some of the mentality difference, you have to be mentally tough to play, compete, and be successful in this league. So I think, that was a lot of, the maturing process for some of our younger guys going into it, playing a longer scheduled season than some of them are used to playing, and just embracing that grind a little bit to develop and get better as a player and as a person.
And speaking of these young players, an 04 captain, you don't see that often in the EHL. Ian Willannon, why do you think he was ready for that responsibility despite being one of the younger players in the EHL?
So through our programs down here, Toby O'Brien, my general manager, runs a program called Overspeed, and they do skills and skating programs throughout the U.S. They go overseas into Europe a little bit too. Ian has been a guy that's, showed up every day. He's worked with Toby for several summers. He was a kid that started at Pomfret on their junior varsity team. His father, Bruce, coaches there. He's had a long-standing college coaching career too, his father. So, he has a little bit of insight into what it takes to get to the higher levels of hockey. And I think the dedication and what he puts into it, on a day-to-day basis. He's the guy that's spending the extra 5-10 minutes every day to work on just skating. He's not just coming down the middle and shooting pucks. He's got a little bit more maturity than what his age would lend to. He comes from a really, really good household. His mother, Monique, and his father, Bruce, are just good people. And I think he was, for us in year one, despite being young, showed a lot of leadership qualities that we were looking for in a first year.
And one of the stronger points of the team this year was the goaltending. You had 3 guys that you can rely on, and all 3 of them got to play. So was it ever difficult for you to manage that position?
We were pretty fortunate right out of the gate. First showcase, we want to bring kids in. It's why we kind of take low numbers. We want them to get a chance to play games. So we were, upfront, with all of our kids as to what the expectations were going to be. We told them that we were going to carry this group for the year, and we told our goaltenders they were going to get a chance to play, and the expectations coming in that they were going to compete for their spot, but everybody would have the chance to prove themselves. And I think we came out of the gate and we won 4 games, and all 3 goalies had a win, which was pretty cool to see. So it put a lot of trust in them that regardless of who we put in, we could have a chance to win. And I think for them, goaltending can be a tough spot sometimes because there's only one guy that gets to play. But in the locker room, they had 3 spots right next to each other. And I think 2 of them lived together at the apartment. So they were a pretty tight knit group as a crew because they were working toward the same end goal, but all knowing that, they were in a fair situation that would, lend themselves to having a chance to prove what they could do.
And do you think yourself being a goalie when you were in your playing days, do you think that helped you at all in terms of dealing with a trio of goaltenders?
Yeah, we're pretty goalie friendly. Toby also was a goaltender. I don't know if you knew that, but he played goalie back in his day at Union. And then I think he had a little cup of coffee too in the professional levels. But we're certainly our mindset and our thought process. They're in the forefront because of how important they are. And having gone through it ourselves, we know what we went through in that position at that particular time. Myself playing juniors in college and everything, and knowing the mindset of when you're in or versus when you're out, or when you need to be put in the stands or when you need to get the chance to come back a second game after having a tough one, to help you kind of get out of that slump or get back on track or whatever it is. But I think it probably helps a little bit that we've been there before and we speak their language, so to speak.
So Cal Welch did feel like end up as the number 1 for HCRI, and he earned himself a commitment to Assumption College this year, despite potentially having 1 year left on his junior career if he wanted it. So what do you think makes him ready for the jump to the college level?
First of all, Cal's a phenomenal kid. I run a hockey training program down here, and he helped regularly with our lessons and would come out and coach and work with the kids. He's a very mature young man. Obviously, again, comes from a really good family. But he was somebody that I put a lot of stock into early on. I knew that first year program, we were going to need a really strong goaltender. So our good friend, John Rose, was my former coach. He runs a Green Mountain Exposure up in Vermont. And he was somebody that put us on to Cal. So I went out and watched him play in person several times. And, he was able to get in those performances where it'd be a 40-shot game, and he's given his team to win, his team a chance to win 2-1, 3-2. So I knew he was going to be good for us. I think that Assumption for him, it checked all the boxes he was looking for, academically, campus size, location. Like, I think, there were a lot of things that were, just a really good fit for him. And being a kid that's mature and had the chance to live away from home and everything, I think it for him was the right step. And, I think he's ready to go in and have a chance to, potentially help them too. So
to go back to that initial win streak where all of your goalies got to win the 4 games to open the season, including a big comeback over the Junior Rangers, what do you think was behind the group coming out so strong?
I think, we obviously winning the first 4 was in some ways, I don't know if it was better or worse to win the first 4, but, they came out, really excited, I think was probably the biggest thing. We had some real good weeks coming up to it, leading up to it. We had a good preseason down against the Seahawks on the Cape, and, had some team building things that we did. So I think they were really excited to be with each other. And, they were moving the pucks quick and things were going the right way. We got a couple of really nice bounces early on where, pucks bounce and we're on a breakaway and he scores. And, we had some timely saves and some timely goals that led to early success. But I think the majority of it was, they were young, they were excited, and that led to a real good start for us. But as they soon found out, the league kind of solidifies, guys are solidifying rosters early on, and the teams that you play first week, second week of September are not exactly what they look like when you see them again in November, December, January.
And throughout the season, there was struggles, and one of the biggest struggles for your team was finding the back of the net, and had some trouble with that throughout the season. So what was your message to kind of alleviate those frustrations?
In the first year, there's a lot of stuff to cover. Everybody's starting with a clean slate. So, you're trying to build culture, you're trying to, instill some systems and how the team wants to play and establish an identity on and off the ice. And, we kept just sticking to development. We'd have one day a week consistently throughout the year that we'd work on individual skill and skating and everything. And, our power play struggled for a little bit, and it a little bit gun shy, and that got better as the season went on. But a lot of it was sticking to the process and, making sure that they were coming ready to listen and learn and work on a daily basis. I think good things come when you make, some of the little small plays consistently. You get some of the bounces, you get some of the breaks. And I think as a group, as we became more committed to those things, it got better for us in terms of finding the back of the net.
So one last question to wrap up the discussion about this past season before we move on to you. 8 games below 500, a second place finish in the Central Division, 3-game playoff series is a solid year for an expansion team. So how good of a foundation do you think you guys set yourself up for the years to come here?
We feel like we're in a pretty good spot going into the second year. We're extremely excited about the guys that we're getting back. Like I think we got a real big base of kids that are eager, hungry, that want to get back for another year and build off of what we started last year. For us, the biggest thing is continuing to build, our culture. We said last year we'd be the best team at getting better all season long. As a staff, as a group, like just all around, and we continued to refine things as the season went on. And in learning so much, we want to come into year 2 and, increase the standard, turn things up a notch a little bit, but we're going to be a lot more able and ready to do that because of, the foundation that we built from year 1 coming back into second year. And, a lot of the kids coming in that we've got, this year 2 are, guys we've known for a while. We've got a couple brothers that are coming in. We've got an 06 Dawson that's coming to play with his brother Colby in his last year of juniors. And, we're sad to see the ones in year 1 go, but we're excited about what's to come here for year 2.
So we'll talk about year 2 in a little bit, but shift the conversation to you a bit, getting to know you and your playing days, specifically when you were junior hockey player. You were an 07 EJHL champion. You were the playoff MVP as well, 2008 goaltender of the year in that league. What do you remember besides winning some hardware from junior hockey? What do you remember most?
And I think the group of guys, I think that was my first chance. I was a senior in high school, and I moved up to New Hampshire to play for the Junior Monarchs that were in the Eastern Junior League, coached by Sean Tremblay. And, coming into that situation, supposed to be playing with a goalie partner, Ryan Simpson. And he was a Providence College commit. He was 6'4", big kid. And, I was coming in expecting to play 10% of the games in that first year. But I was excited to move away from home, and I had a billet family, and I had another player that I was living with, Eric Byer, that was also a Providence commit. So for us, we just spent a lot of time together. You did a lot of growing up in the years that you're away from family and mom and everything else, and you learn to get through. So year 1 in a billet, year 2, I was with we lived in an apartment with 3 other players. So I had a little bit of both experiences. And, for me, I think, we had a lot of success in that first year. I think it was like a 46-4-1 season where we won the championship and everything. So it was about as good as it can go from that side. But I think what we figured out was that if everybody brought to the table what they were good at and was willing to commit to their role. Like everybody got where they wanted to go at the end of the day. You know, I had a lot of kids that matriculated on to Division I college, and a couple kids to NESCAC schools. So I think overall it was the group of guys that made the whole thing so special, going through just the trials and tribulations on and off the ice of an 8-9 month season.
So you most definitely moved on to college hockey, achieving all Ivy and all ECAC honors while at Dartmouth. You were the top male athlete there, 2011, ended up in the Hall of Fame when it was all said and done, second all-time in save percentage. So a lot of success for you. What were your biggest takeaways from the college game?
It was always like a pinch me moment, I guess, because my first year playing for Sean, I was an undersized goalie, and I think I led the league that first year in save percentage and still didn't have any kind of college opportunities. So I was discouraged that all my teammates were committing and everything. And I think we went into the playoffs there in the final series. I think I had 77 straight saves. I had back-to-back shutouts. So then I got to go on some college visits after that. So I always thought that Division I college was going to be a pipe dream a little bit. You always have hopes and dreams, but actually getting there, I treated college like it was, professional hockey for me, so I enjoyed my time. I made the most of the experience, and, at the end of the day, I got to play too. And, I played a decent number of games and got to contribute to the program. And, I'm pretty proud to be an alumni of a school like that.
So to bring up coaching as a former goalie once more, there are a lot of former goalies that are coaches in this league. So do you think, seeing the game from that perspective offers anything different when it comes to coaching?
Yeah, it does seem like a lot of goalies get into coaching. As a goalie, you're kind of stuck in that little blue paint for the most of it. So my job never really changed. It was always to stop the puck. But you're always involved in the team meetings and learning about the defensive zone coverage, and you're learning the D's responsibilities in the wing, and you're able to see the whole play because you got your back to the board, so you see 200 feet of ice. Might offer a little bit different perspective because you see as a goaltender offensive things that are difficult for a goalie to handle, and at the end of the day, the game's about putting the puck in the back of the net. So it does seem like goalies find their way into coaching, but I think it's a lot of passionate guys too, right? We're passionate about the game and hockey in itself, and so it's all good stuff.
So it wasn't long after college that you started your coaching career as Providence College's you worked with their women's team as a goaltending coach and an assistant with your old high school, LaSalle. So it was working with Providence, specifically your first experience with women's hockey?
Yeah, so I finished up college. I had the double labrum surgery on my hips, so I was still itching to play, and couldn't put hockey on the shelf at that point. So when I came home, I was working a seasonal job through the spring, summer, fall, and then Coach Deraney was willing to bring me on at Providence College as a young guy to help work with their goaltenders. I was with him for 4 or 5 years. I think the world of him. I learned a lot through that process too. But that was my first experience with women's hockey. Like I said, I love the experience. I wouldn't have been there for 5 years if I hadn't. There's something about girls hockey where they listen a little bit more. They pick things up a little bit quicker. So I enjoyed the years that I had there, and it eventually transitioned. I got the assistant coaching job at LaSalle, which led to the head coaching job. So I ended up, moving on from there, but it was definitely a real good experience.
So you jumped from the time at LaSalle, where you were a head coach for 4 seasons, to junior hockey. Did you find that to be a difficult adjustment at all?
It was definitely a longer season. I think the adjustment for me was, really getting into the day in and day out, seeing what that level of hockey has to offer, because Rhode Island high school hockey, it's had its ups and downs throughout the years, but, a lot of our kids go through high school hockey into prep and other higher levels before they then move on to college. Moving into junior hockey, you're now dealing with the kids that are going to go right from there into school. So, I think it was a big learning curve in year one. And like I said, I couldn't have had, I don't think, a better kind of mentor at the time in Coach Odessa to help me through that first year. but a lot was learned in a short amount of time. So, it was fun to make the jump because it is a higher level of hockey, and we feel that we can help a lot of kids at this level, especially locally, that are trying to get to NCAA.
So when you were at LaSalle coaching, how different, were there any big differences in terms of, anything back from when you were playing to when you were coaching?
I was, again, so like pinch me moment. I got to coach against a lot of the guys that I played against. Bill Basile is a Hall of Fame coach here for Mount St. Charles that helped numerous guys get from Mount to professional levels. So I get to be on the other side of things and on the bench. But very similar when I played. It's cool to play in front of your peers and have a Friday night game and have your kids that you sit in class with show up to the games and everything like that. And I think that stuff is still very present in the Rhode Island game. We had some just different. It was a different time a little bit. We didn't have as many kids going to prep school. Junior was a more prevalent route 15 years ago than it is or was as of recently.
So you did mention Coach A as well. Are there any big lessons that you've taken from working with him that are still with you today?
Yeah, I don't think there's a day go by where I don't hear his voice talking about something in my head, whether it's hockey related or family related. He came into my life at an interesting time. I just got married and was having my first kid. And he always used to say, this is, it's not just hockey. This is husband, father training, so his lessons, reached a lot farther than just the hockey rink. And I think anybody that's met him can probably say the same.
So in between Worcester and Rhode Island, primarily focusing on your company, Rhode Island Hockey Academy, can you tell us about how the program started and what it offers for players?
In 2016, I had been coaching at LaSalle for 2 years, and we were kind of trying to find a way to, work with our players in the summertime and everything. So it started with this idea of a Rhode Island Hockey Academy, to run some clinics predominantly for a lot of our kids at the time and high school players that were trying to, just get a little bit more down in this area. And it kind of evolved into a little private training center. So I've got a real sheet of ice here that we do our goaltending training on. So we do, weekly training for kids on a semi-private basis. And then we also have a full synthetic sheet that we do shooter training on as well. So one of my former teammates in high school junior hockey, and he went on to play at Norwich. He was on one of those Monarchs teams with me. He runs the shooter training here for us. So it's Rhode Island based company, really just focused on helping Rhode Island kids, and just trying to give them a little bit more, because when we played down in this area, we didn't have a place like this. I was driving an hour and a half to get goaltending training. So I think it's helped a lot of our local kids here. We've had some kids that have now gotten into some colleges, and it's fun to just help the process along for Rhode Island local kids.
And for your Rhode Island team, it'll be a great resource for them to have this season close in proximity to their gym, which you showed me right on the wall outside. So to get back to this HCRI team for this upcoming year, a ton of returners, which is a good thing to have. So what steps forward are you expecting from that group?
I'm hoping the expectation coming in is they've gained this year of experience for the guys that didn't play junior hockey, and some kids that came from some smaller markets into New England juniors, that they now know what it's going to take to be successful in the league. We're not going to be starting at ground zero. We're going to have a nice foundation to build off of, and we've already connected and gotten into our our scheduling communications a little bit with the team, so that we're starting a little bit earlier in terms of bringing the group together. And hopefully on day one, we're not at day one. I think hopefully we're going to be a little bit farther along, and at a higher starting point than we were last year, which will allow us to kind of raise the bar for the group on a daily basis.
So Colby Speth is a returner, and you mentioned him earlier, returning this season to play in his age out year with his brother Dawson. So Colby's a guy who had an NCAA offer, but chose to stay with HCRI for one more year. So what does that say to you about what your program is doing right, that a guy who could move on is coming back?
Well, obviously we love Colby Speth. He's not a guy that we would force out the door. He's kind of, one of the perfect guys you want in the locker room, on the bench and everything. He's a kind of a no BS, yes sir, no sir type guy, and he gives you everything that he's got every day. The fun part about them is we've known them for 5 years now. So like I remember Colby when he was playing for his high school team back in Sun Valley, and when Dawson was playing Pee-wees, his younger brother was playing on the Pee-wees. So I think for them it's a unique opportunity and possibly their last chance to play together as brothers, because they crossed over I think briefly in high school, but now this is their chance to kind of be away from home. I think they're going to have the chance to live together in an apartment, and Dawson being in 06 and his brother in 03, they'll have a chance to live together as brothers in an apartment for a year, which I think is appealing for anybody to get the chance to do that. But I think it plays a little bit into what we're trying to build, just a family environment. And he trusts in us that coming back, he might be able to expand his opportunities at the NCAA level also, which we believe, he's a type of player that's going to, caught a lot of people's attention in this first year, and will have the real good chance to kind of break things open in his second year out here.
So finally, having one of the youngest teams in the league last year, you don't have to do quite the amount of replacing of players that other teams have to do. But what are some things that you enjoy most about the offseason and recruitment season?
Toby is obviously, he spent 15 years in the National Hockey League as a scout. So his attention to detail when it comes to players and player personnel and recruiting, that's an area that I've learned a tremendous amount. He's been another tremendous mentor in my life, both on and off the ice. So learning from him and, see the way that he connects with families and connects with people. And, we're not running any tryouts or camps or anything like that. For us, it's a one-to-one recruiting. So, we're pretty close to being done. I think we might have one more spot that we're looking to solidify. But outside of that, we're pretty much buttoned up for the year. So, we're now looking forward to, having this group established and starting to bring them together so that, they can be as close as possible by the time they get here already by September.
Well, Coach, we're looking forward to seeing that group. You had a great group of kids this year, so we're really excited to see what HCRI can bring this upcoming season. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. Have a obviously a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.